LinkedIn, and because we are in multiple locations at once. Yes, we are up on both. So if people are joining in, that is great. I think I can see that we're up here on both. Ryan, thank you so much for doing this with me, for taking some time and catching up. I wanted to show you some cool stuff, and we thought let's do it on a live stream so that we can show with people. So thanks for rolling with me and just going on and doing this together.
Totally happy to do it, and thanks for coming up with this. I like this idea of more of a group chat than just one-on-one, because you guys are working on some really cool stuff, and I'm really excited to see because since the last time we talked, we hadn't gone through kind of this Claude code integration and what you guys are doing there, and I'm using that a lot, so I'm really curious to see how everyone else is using it too.
The world is changing fast, that's for sure. And so that's kind of what we wanted to talk about. So first, to hear a little bit of what you're doing, see what we've been building at Fused, and then just have a conversation there. So if there are people that are joining in the chat, also I would love to know, like, what are you working on? Where are you calling in from? It's always great to hear from that. Where actually are you, Ryan?
I live in Cheyenne, Wyoming, just a couple hours north of Denver, Colorado. So this is
we're a little bit far out from each other.
My 1970s office that has all the great vintage wood paneling in it. But
it does look amazing.
We've been out here.
It looks amazing.
Thanks.
Can you tell me a little bit about, before we do that, we jump into it, can you tell me a little bit about what you do for work? Because I think you have one of the coolest, first of all, job titles, and then jobs out there.
Yeah, so I think my technical title is I am a research producer for the Johnny Harris YouTube channel, which is now part of the New Press company. And the idea is that we are a independent journalism organization that is sort of turning the different sections of the newspaper into individual YouTube channels. So we have a whole group of creators that each cover different topics, and we make videos about those topics to help people understand the news and the context around the news. And some of those videos are sports related, some of them are more investigative, some of them are more analytical on our Max Fisher's channel. But I work on the Johnny Harris channel, and these are primarily geopolitical videos. So explaining international relations, the history and context behind different conflicts and, big events that are happening. And so, as you can imagine, that involves a lot of maps. So my job is split between producing the videos, kind of managing the nuts and bolts of them, directing out visuals in the scripts, working with the animators to storyboard things out, but also this technical side of actually pulling in map data, basically just giving these really talented animators access to geospatial data, which we all know can be quite inaccessible at times or finicky to work with. So I formerly was a data engineer, and I thought that when I was leaving that to come into YouTube, my data engineering days were over. But it turns out I'm still doing tons of data engineering. It's the difference is, instead of turning stuff into cogs and Parquet files and parking them in S3 buckets, now they turn into SVGs or custom GeoJSONs, and they land in our Dropbox folder. And the animators are just my new front end engineers to hand off to and collaborate with. So that's been kind of a pleasant surprise that I haven't left that world fully.
That's a pretty fun way to see it. I pulled this up. I think this is the coolest thing. Like, you're in the credits of these videos here. Like, your work gets seen and viewed by a lot of people. Like, these videos get millions, sometimes tens of millions of views. Like, there's a lot of people watching the work that you and of course the whole rest of the team does.
There's 20 of us, I think, now that work on different, between animators, editors, producers, archival people, with someone who does the music. Like, it is really a team effort, and it is crazy to see just time after time millions of people are coming in to
Yeah.
watch this stuff. And we just the team just won an Emmy for some of our maps and graphics. It was in the graphic design category, so a lot of the maps that we did were recognized for that, which was pretty exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah, congrats to the whole team on that. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
We have Stephanie that's joining from Paris, France, and working on MCP for her company using fast MCP mainly. So cool. Welcome, Stephanie. The way that this conversation started was that recently, Ryan, you went on the Mapscaping podcast with Daniel, and you talked about like what are some of the tools that you use for telling stories with maps. And like the big shift that's coming there is basically AI is really just changing a lot of how you work, how I think a lot of us work. And so you were telling about how you're using Claude to basically write code for you and help you ship things faster. And the thing that I wanted to show is what we've been basically up to is like what happens when you take things like a step further about like, okay, you write the code. And so I showed you a demo, which is here. I have basically this where one of the values of Claude Code is it's really good at writing code, but like shipping it and integrating it, reusing it is still something that gets a little complicated sometimes. And so what I want to build together and show you is, and show people who are joining in here, is basically like how we're able to do this with Fuse and what that looks like. So here, one of the things that you had mentioned, Ryan, was like creating hillshades. Like I have an elevation model, I want to make a hillshade. So I thought that would be a good example. I have here, I just ask, I'm in Claude in the chats actually directly. You can do that in Cowork, but I went in the chat here. And then just directly I said, hey, use this tool to return the file path of a hillshade over the center of Paris within a 10-meter radius. And so here it called it tool one time. It was like, okay, it didn't figure it out. Try it again. And then eventually it was able to call this tool. And then it returns an S3 path here of a hillshade. And so what's happening under the hood is that you can have these connectors in Claude. I don't know, have you used these, Ryan? Like, have you connected stuff? Are you working in Claude as well, or is it just all Claude code?
Primarily Claude code, but I have used,
Right.
I have done some with the connectors, like wired them up to Notion as
Yeah.
kind of one of the classic one. But mostly that's just like, we have a big kind of operating manual in there, and so I'll just use that to kind of pull things out quicker, or use it just to update some files. But so I haven't done any of like the super technical ones, but I do a lot of Claude code integrations.
Yeah. And so basically, like the thing that we have here is that you can have things like Calendar, Gmail, Notion, but when you want to expand on that, if I want to have my own tools, basically, like how can I do that? And one of the ways to do that is using Fused. So here I have this other tool that is basically export hillshade to S3, and it is a function. It is a tool that I can expose. And so under the hood, what's happening is that I have this project in Fused where every one of these boxes here, this one is what we're calling a widget, and then we have these functions here, these user-defined function. And these ones are things that I can run, I can execute. Under the hood, it's some Python code, so we'll get into that, but Claude wrote this one for me. And I can build something like this where I can very easily, I have this area and I can like change the position of the sun. I can like play around with this hillshade that I want. So I can have this very visual feedback, but I can also, when I build this canvas, every one of these components here becomes a tool that I can call from Claude. So I'm gonna show all three of these here, and I'm gonna run this guy. So all three of these are individual like Python scripts that I have here. And we'll get into what they do in a second. This one just returns the image. This one actually calculates the hillshade, returns it to S3. And this one is a tile worker so that I can do that in tiles. And what I can do in Fused is that I can come here and share, and then I can open here this API list. And what it does is it's turned every single function that I have into an endpoint. So every function that I create here is an endpoint that I can then expose very easily to Claude. So I can come here and I can even create a new one that I just call hello live stream. And then the moment I create this, I come up here and I refresh this page, I have now a hello live stream endpoint. And this is what then I can just very easily pass to Claude. And I think this hillshade generator on S3, I think even if I come back here and I refresh the tool list, I will have a hello live stream that's immediately visible in Claude. Like that's as simple, that's what we meant in the title, is like creating an MCP server in minutes. It's actually seconds. Because now I have basically Fuse allows me to deploy whatever I want, all the code that I want, and then just immediately becomes available. In this case, I'm going to remove the live stream. I'm going to also say the preview, I don't necessarily want it, so I can just hide it. And then this tile worker here, I don't want it, so I'm going to hide it. So I'm going to just keep this export to S3. And then if I come back to Claude and I refresh my list of tools, I can have just this tool that's just this one tool that's basically exposed to Claude. So this allows me to have some control over, I can still have a process, I can still have something that I can visualize if I want to visually control it. But then when I decide to, quote, deploy this and have it accessible through Claude, I just have this tool. I don't have to have all these utility functions under the hood. Make sense so far?
Yeah, totally. So did you use Claude Code to write the UDFs like then?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the next piece about like, okay, that is great once it's set up and I can ask my questions and I can build my tools, but now how do I build all of this? So what I did is I wrote a I wrote a spec, basically. I wrote a prompt, if you will, about what I want to do. And so I gave it to Claude. I say, hey, I want to create this canvas that gives me hillshades from elevation models. I wanted to be able to create a custom MCP server that takes the latitude, longitude, the directory on S3 where I want to save it, and it should have a single endpoint called hillshade to S3. And this returns the full name of the path on S3. And under the hood, I said I wanted to use the Copernicus DEM, and I want you to use multiprocessing in Fuse to be able to process large areas. I want to be able to visually check the hillshade myself, and then start with the Mont Blanc, and then here's a bucket path. And then I ask it to give me a plan. And so I did this just before we went on the call. And we can see that right here. So this is basically the same thing that I did here. And I gave it this, it gave me a plan for like what to build. I said, that looks good to me. I like this idea. It said, I'm going to have a compute hillshade. I'm going to have a hillshade to S3 and a preview. It gives me some details about how it's going to do it. It's going to write some files locally. And then what it is, as I said, yeah, looks good. And then all the way at the end, basically it gives me a link to a canvas, which is this canvas that I have here. I think it's actually this one that I had right here. And I'm pretty much ready to go. I can come up here. You see, I haven't even gotten to that part. By default, it's not shared, but you can decide how to share this. For this example, I'm just going to make it public. You can add a passcode. So I can say, 1, 2, 3, something like that. And then I need to tell Claude how to be able to call it, what the passcode is. And then once I have, so I'm going to actually remove the passcode just to make this simpler. And then I just copy MCP, and this gives me basically the endpoint that I can pass to Claude. I can come up here to the customize connectors. I actually have a new one. And then in here for now, I'm just going to add a custom connector. I'm going to say this is the fused test hillshade. example, and then I basically get this whole. This is the command if you want to paste it directly into Claude code. So you can also have I'm gonna copy that. Whoops. I'm gonna keep that as well here. And then I'm gonna keep that one. I put it to public, so there's no OAuth to pass for now. And then I'm gonna have like a second toolkit if I want. I can build as many as I want here, because every time that I create this, I can create a new project in Fused. So if you have something like Google Calendar or Notion or something like that, there's just one connection that you create that has access to everything. Here, you might want to be able to share this across different people. You might want to be able to have different projects, different tools that you can customize and work with. I'm going to give it a sec here. But in the meantime, I can come up here to this home, and you'll see that I have many different projects. So I was exploring something with Fable 5. We were working on some other project. There's a partner of ours that's doing a live workshop on Thursday in Japan. All of these are different. So I can take a look at this. This is like a much bigger project that I have here with a lot more data, a lot more visualization. I can have these maps. This is not a project that's being turned into an MCP server, but I can also do that if I wanted to.
Yeah.
So basically, I went from the thing I forgot to mention is that we have this skill here. So we have right here, there's this skill that you can give to Claude. What this will do is it will install the CLI for you. So Claude can then like push, pull, write to canvas, all of that. So it has access to the CLI itself, and then the skill for like how to actually interact with Fuse, like what a function is, what the different parameters are. But all I did was basically, I think I added just a couple things like how to render the image to memory and things like that in the chat. But yeah, basically here I just gave it the prompt that I wrote here, where I describe what the input is, what the outputs that I want to have are. It created this whole canvas, and then I can come to Workbench here. This is the UI that we have. And so this becomes the sort of management layer for your code in a way, where like you can decide, hey, this one, I don't want to see it anymore, and there's no tools. Or you can add on top of these, and then you can version control this on GitHub as well.
That's so awesome. I just gotta say, I love that the way Claude is talking to Fuse is through a CLI tool and a skill, because I think that combination is so underrated. Like when you think about the development of the CLI, it was made to be like a text to machine interface in the first place. And that's been like my default. So I have my agents or Claude or whoever use Grass a lot, because it has a command line interface built in, and the tool library is just so robust. And so a matter of like it figuring out the documentation is just Grass-H, and it reads the help, and it can go through that whole decision tree of using the CLI. So anyway, I thought that was just great. Instead of like over engineering an API or like another MCP, just give it or trying to do it through Python where things are much more flexible. Just give it the CLI and let it go.
Yeah, I mean, you can really you can see that basically what it does is it writes the code locally for me first, and then it pushes the code up to Fused. But like it doesn't actually even matter. Like I'm just letting it do its thing in the background. It can even test, because these are all of these elements here, like they actually are their own endpoint. You can see here I'm calling the canvas / the UDF name, and I can return this here as a JSON if I want to. And then this is basically the data that comes back. And so Claude knows what this format is of the function / the UDF name, and then I can even pass the query parameters. And these are the names, these are the variables in Python of the function that I have up here. So you see latitude, longitude, size in kilometers, all of that. I can pass that in the query. So Claude can do all of these calls directly for me, make sure that it works. By default, I don't ask it to do it because I don't necessarily want it to trigger some runs for me. But if I wanted to, I could append to the skill the way that I want to work and say, always test it before you write it. Or you tell me that you're done. That's where you can build on top of these skills as well.
That's cool.
But I'd love to know, Ryan, like what of these use cases, like what are sort of, having shown you this example here, like what do you see yourself or do you see yourself using something like this?
Totally. I can already think of 101 use cases for this. Primarily, one of the factors is figuring out how to make some of the stuff I'm building accessible to people, right? And so this concept of I can just set up an MCP and say, here, put this in your Claude desktop connector, and you can query it that way. That's a very fast, easy solution that doesn't, because I've thought of things and thought, no, I can't just have everyone on the team set up Claude code. Like that is too overwhelming. That's going to be too in the weeds. My whole job is going to be troubleshooting people's Claude installs. Like, how do we do this? And so something like that is really beneficial. I've done others where I've wired it up to like a bot in a Slack channel and they can talk through the Slack channel. But I think, sometimes the path of least resistance is just being connected into Claude like that.
The other thing is, if you go to share here, we have, I think I need to, we do have a Slack integration where you can set up, because it's the same thing, it's an endpoint. And so you can set this up to basically connect to Slack. And then if you have Slack, if you have a channel, you just pass the channel ID, and then you're able to connect directly your bot to the Slack channel. And that means that the same control that you have here, you have access to in Slack. And so you can say, well, I've built all of this pipeline that's happened here. This is the thing that I want to expose. In the end, this is the only one that I want to expose. You can control this all in one place, basically.
That's cool. I really like that. So one question for you. Because truthfully, I probably don't understand this concept well enough, and I'm sure someone else tuning in might also not understand it. We use this term serverless, and that's a huge part of Fuse, and it's one of the huge benefits. A lot of this infrastructure, I could, like, for example, I have a computer over here that I have a Linux install on, and I have a bunch of tools set up on it, and my agents know that they can go SSH into this machine to process certain stuff because it just has like a little bit more compute. Or I have an EC2 instance in AWS that's running. What are the big benefits of doing this server? Like, what does serverless mean? And what are the big advantages of being able to do this serverless in terms of like parallel compute and, things like that? So just dive into that a little bit.
That's a really, really good question. The first thing is sort of the simplicity and the cost management. So you're right that you could totally say, hey, I have this Python script that I want to run, just like have it on an EC2 machine. The thing is, like, if in this case, like what we're doing is not that complicated. It's basically like loading in a tile from a Stack server, and then like just doing a bunch of NumPy calculations on it. As soon as you want to do something that's a little bit heavier, that requires more memory, or just takes a little bit longer, now you need to have an EC2 machine that's always running, that has the amount of memory that you want, or that has the amount of storage attached to it, or that has the number of CPUs that you want that's attached to it. And then that's going to cost you quite a lot. to which you could say, okay, well, then I can have like a small orchestrator. And then if I have a call, it goes and sets up a machine. And like now you're turning into a DevOps person that's like managing your different instances. So if you have an EC2 machine, you're sort of limited by whatever the capacity of that machine is that has to sort of run all the time. Or you can turn it on and off. And now you have to manage this. The idea of serverless is that we do that for you, and we provide you with these machines that already have Python that is installed in them with a bunch of libraries in it. So that what it is that I can simply say, hey, for most cases, for like calculating something like a hillshade, I don't need the latest and greatest version of Rasterio. I need something that is recent enough that actually does the job and that is compatible with everything else. Like, of course, I want something recent because I don't want to be on something that's 5 years old, but maybe I don't need the thing from like last week. Maybe I can have the thing from like a few months ago that is working, that gets the job done. And we allow you to, customize your environments on like higher tiers and things like that. But the idea is, especially in this world where there's agents and they can write the code very quickly for you, it's kind of like the slowest part of your whole pipeline becomes the slowest part, the part that takes you the longest to set up. And so now the code, used to take a while to get this code running. And so spending some time on the infra, that was not a huge deal. But now it's so quick to write the code. You want to be able to test it, deploy it, push it up, and you want it to scale quickly without you spending a whole bunch of time on it. That's kind of the idea of serverless, is that you can scale. So for example, here there's this tile worker, and this is just like one function that takes in a bounding box, azimuth, altitude, and this processes like a small area. And so I need to run this multiple times. You see here, I need to run this over 9 tiles. And it's basically, I just load this function, and then I say tileudf.map. And this .map under the hood runs it 9 times for me. Like I just ran in parallel this function from this worker directly in parallel. It's just a few lines of Python code, and now Claude is also the one that's doing it. So it's not really that complicated. But if we can make it just a few lines of Python that you say, hey, just run this in parallel, get the results, and then save that, I didn't need to set up any infrastructure here. And then we bill you just what you used. We can cache, if I run, you can see here, it takes about 5 seconds to run this. If I go ahead here and I run it again, it actually doesn't take 5 seconds. You saw it took like 0.5 seconds because the result is cached. Because we own that compute, we can see, oh, you've already run this before. There's no need for me to go spin up a bunch of machines, run them. I can just directly give you the result in S3 buckets.
This is so cool. I could have totally used something like this. Yeah,
making it a lot simpler, basically.
Yeah, when I was doing consulting work, a couple of years ago, we were doing a project with FEMA where we were effectively doing a site selection across 9 different states for one of the FEMA regions, and as you can imagine, that is a lot of data, and that was like really the first thing I had to do that was at scale, that required paralleling, and I feel like it used to be the time that it would have taken to set up a bunch of parallel capable infrastructure like this in AWS Lambda or whatever would have required, an architect to set that up for me, and it was a lot of overhead to get that up and running, or it was a lot of hacky stuff on my side of just trying to make the Python as efficient and parallel, within these linear constraints of whatever compute environment I was using. This would have been so handy.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that now you want, not only do you want to do these analysis, but they're getting access through agents. And so you want your agent to be able to make a call, and then just the compute just happens at that moment. If you want to, deploy something to your team, and you want to say, I'm going to take this example again, hey, I want the whole team to be able to run hill shade analysis because I want them to be able to understand what it looks like. You don't want to have that machine that's running in the background all the time. You want it to be running whenever someone actually runs it. And then if everybody's doing the same request, just cache it. You don't spend a lot on compute. The other thing that I can do is that I can. I'm going to share my screen again here. So I mentioned that in this iteration that I did, I created this little visualization here, and then it shows me the hill shade that's running. Well, this is also valuable in and of itself. So I can come here and I can share it. I can make this public, and then I can open this in a new tab. And now I can actually come here and I can paste this in the chat. So I'm going to send it to you, Ryan, and then I'm going to send it to everybody in the live streams. And so from that, you can actually interact with it directly, or you can also just copy it and say, hey, I want to work with this. I want to edit it. I want to modify it. You can directly see this widget. Basically, I've like created a dashboard that I can share with anybody. I can make a copy here if you want to go iterate on it and test it. So the value isn't just in like building these things, because that's easy now. Claude Code does it for you all the time. The thing that's complicated is like, can I send this to my team? Can other people use it? And Claude, I mean, can go and write some of the Terraform and all of that for you. But it's how quickly can I go from, hey, I built something, to I can send it to someone else. They can use it in their workflow, be it in Slack, be it in Claude, be it directly in the browser like that. That's kind of what we want to help build and simplify.
I can show you, if you want, I can share my screen and I can show you
Yeah,
the tool that I built and how I would think about retooling into this.
So with that, if you have an existing project, what is great is to go to Claude and say, turn this into a Fuse canvas.
Yeah. So this is a one of the biggest requests I have right now is our super talented 3D animators are always looking for height maps. That's what they call DEMs in the animation world, is a height map. And so, but they also they need them in very specific formats. Like a lot of times they want a lot of detailed resolution in them, so they need to be 16-bit. Like you don't want them to be, if there's 32, that's too big. If they're 8, that's too fine. So they need them to be like in 16-bit. And a lot of time it's better to have them rescaled so that the lowest elevation point, so even if it's like the bottom of the Mariana Trench, it's going to start at 0 and then run up there. So we're rescaling to the 16-inch values to go 0 to max, to just stretch out the histogram on it, if you will. So anyway, so all of that is not crazy complicated. Like I just have a GDAL script that runs it, and I pass it an input, and it gives me those PNG tiles, and they have certain dimensions they want. So I built this little web tool where the viewport that you get is 16 by 9, so you can frame your shot. So you can come in and say, okay, this is the shot. This is kind of like my maximum extent for my animation, or the minimum extent. And then I can select, right now I just have 2 sources wired up to it, but Gebco is one of the ones that we use a lot. And from there, I can search for different ones. So this was one that we did. Let's do easy for pull out. It's going to pull in a layer. So now I know, now if I click download, it's going to export this tile.
They're
going to get that. So the way I've got it set up now is they log into this website, they can frame it and do it. But I imagine I could also just set this up infused, and then have a Claude MCP that they can connect to in their Claude, and they would just type in, I need a height map that will cover the extent of the EEZ for Palau, or I can build the dashboard and share it with them, and they can then frame the shot themselves. Because I guess this would be the one question. Could I add HTML elements into the dashboard view preview so that they could get a similar type of like 16:9 viewer? Like, it's going to export a square tile, but I just want to preview and see that it's going to match my visible extent.
I think that's something that we could do. I think so. Basically, like, because what you want is just, at the end of the day, it's like a latitude, longitude plus. It's like a bounding box that you're passing.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, you can absolutely build that in Fused, and then like that's actually one of the endpoints that you can have, which is like, hey, I can have that to either be. So I'm going to share my my screen again. I'm going to pull you down. And I'm going to have, so we have the widget here. You'll notice that this is actually just some JSON here component. And that allows you to have like a something like latitude, longitude, and then it goes and reruns the whole pipeline. I think if I make this a little bit bigger, is it going to, no, it's not rerunning. I think this one is. It might not have passed the parameter properly. But this is also something that you can actually come in here and I can pass as URL. And this component here is also like a standalone that I have here. So you could use the widget that we have here. You can create your own custom inputs, if you will, that can then go and trigger some UDFs.
That'd be slick. That's really cool.
Yeah. And this is where like Claude is your friend, basically, to be able to pull all of that together.
No, totally.
So what I
was going to say, the other one I've thought about that we've talked about is taking our GeoTIFF scans of old maps and turning them into XYZ tiles. I think that was already something I've tried out and worked on, and I think this takes that to the next level of accessibility. And being able to share those out.
So we're exploring on like, because just this this canvas view is actually a really handy way of just like visualizing like what your code looks like and what your projects look like. So we have a version that's coming where we're gonna make this run also like locally to be able to run the code that you have. Because when I went to Claude Code here, it actually like wrote the code locally, then it pushes it up to the server. But we're working on a version that's like going to be local, so you can actually iterate on this very, very quickly and then push it up to the server as well. So we're really cool. we want to make it a lot easier to say, okay, Claude Code is great with text, and it's great at building all these projects. But one, you can't visualize what you're doing very easily. Like you can ask Claude to show you an image of preview or something like that, but like getting to a point where like it actually runs the code that you want specifically, and you're able to have that interaction is still not quite there. And then being able to share that out with anybody in your team that you need other infrastructure to be able to do that. So if you want to try this out, Ryan, what I recommend is like you have the canvas that I have here. Feel free to make a copy, and so you'll have that right away. I recommend going to this Fused skill repo, and then basically there's all the instructions for just adding the plugin, installing the Python package, and then you're going to be able to get this working. And I can also send you like the prompt that I wrote, but I'm pretty sure you already have that project that you're working on. One thing I would try is just say, hey, take this, turn it into a Fused project. This is the endpoint that I want to have, and sort of see what it comes up with from there. I've done that in the past where I had a project that was like completely local that had nothing to do with Fused, and I said just turn it into Fused project, and it just went and did it.
That's sweet. I'm excited to try this. I've got like 3 or 4 I can, even outside of work, that this would be cool for.
I'd love to see that. Like, let us know what you end up doing.
No, totally.
What is I wanted to ask you as well. Like, you've been using a lot of things. it seems like a big part of your job is building these like internal tools for the team to help with the production. What are, beyond the obvious Claude code, like what is one thing maybe, or even like a task where, in the last month or two, like you were really surprised that you were able to put it together and it worked, or a tool that you found like just blew your mind?
Yeah, so we have a lot of there's like a lot of tedious in between things that happen. Like for example, when we write our scripts, we'll go through and we add a citation tag to each one to say this is the source we're pulling from that backs up this line.
Yeah.
And then that needs to then be converted into usually two things. Like it needs to be formatted in a way that we can then show it on screen to say, here, animator, this is the on-screen citation you need to put in the lower left-hand corner. And so that requires me to like open the link, read the URL, figure out who the author, like format it out. And just doing that for 200 citations gets really mind-numbing and takes a while. And then the other version of that is then those sources go to a source doc where we say, okay, this is the timestamp on the video for this section. And then here's all like the detailed footnotes of, different excerpts or stuff that talk about the nuance that usually people are getting after us in the comments for not being nuanced enough. All that nuance is in the sources. And so, yeah, hold on. I think my headphones just died. Let me pull those off.
I can still hear you.
Cool. But anyway, so last week I experimented with, I don't know, do you know what Hermes is?
Yeah.
So I set up a Hermes agent and gave it, and then this was kind of wild because I'm not much of a cloud architect. I can set up a cloud bucket. I can, deploy a database in the cloud. But in terms of like, federating different things and making AWS EC2 talk to Google Cloud Services, like that has not been in my wheelhouse. But with Claude now it is, because I wanted to test a workflow where I was like, okay, can this Hermes agent can I give it instructions and a skill to be able to go through and do the on-screen source formatting? Like, can I get it to read the comments where these sources are out of the Google Doc, and then give it a new Google Doc that it has access to, and can it write those out and do it? Because I didn't want to let it like touch the live thing yet, So Claude totally helped me set up. It was like, hey, here's how you're gonna get your agent in the EC2 bucket to talk to your Google Cloud Services over here, and here's how we're gonna set up the Docs API so that it has access to what it needs to, and you can escalate and de-escalate privileges however you want. And then I just worked with it to kind of teach it, like, here's how these sources are going to go. I want you to make sure that you're using grep, so you're not hallucinating anything. We're just basically copy pasting, reformatting stuff. And it was a rough prototype. Like, I still had to give some correction and guidance along the way.
Yeah, but
the fact that, but in a lot of ways, it's I don't know if it's any faster, but sometimes it's a little less boring to review someone's work than to again sit there to have to copy and paste it. So anyway, that was just last week. So I've got to continue refining that and playing around with it a little more. But the fact that I could actually do that was pretty mind blowing. And it, in the course of an afternoon, something like that would have taken me. I'm slow, so 3 weeks max, to figure out how to set it up and and do all that. So unfortunately gone are the days of Substack, but that's how I would have lived and died. So
I think like that's the main thing, is like we're all like recalibrating like what's possible and like what you can do, like as a single person or as a small team as well. Like, it really requires that like shift and just like constantly rethinking, like, well, this is actually possible now, or like, let me try this ambitious project that I didn't think I could do.
And even just from like a learning standpoint, it's been crazy. Like, I don't know, one of my favorite things to do is to just give Claude a GitHub repo and just say, teach me how this works.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I'm so self-taught. Like, I did not get a computer science degree. I had like 2 programming classes in college that were
I'm the same.
C# and then I did one Python data science class when I was in grad school, and so there's all this stuff where like when I work with like the legit computer science people, I like smile and nod a lot, and can kind of pick up what things mean. But being able to like actually break it down and ask all the dumb questions that I usually want to
Yeah,
ask, but
I think
never
that's
want
been
to,
amazing.
it's been fun.
I can relate to that. Absolutely. Like, I think Wikipedia was my favorite up until Claude just came,
Yeah.
and like to be able to, I mean, it's very different. Wikipedia is like the place of knowledge, but I would go there a lot, and now I ask Claude to explain things to me a lot. And that feels great to be able to have this thing that can just explain things to you and doesn't get bored and tired of doing it
Yep.
is fantastic.
And I'm not
Cool.
interrupting it from working on something else to do it.
Yeah, I can ask it in parallel to do all these things. Ryan, thank you so much. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, are you doing anything with like, have you done anything with like automated polls with Claude at all? Like basically to give it a ticket board and then just have it fire up on like a cron job and pull
So
tickets and work on
we're
stuff.
gonna announce like stuff like that relatively
Cool.
soon for like making that easier to have like a bunch of different agents go work on the canvas directly for you.
I've done it in
So
kind of a hacky way because like
yeah,
I have all these unused like I'm paying for the Claude plan and I have all these unused tokens at night. So I'm like, okay, how can I get these firing? So I figured out kind of a hacky way to have it wired up to my Trello board, and then to
yes,
pull
yeah.
things.
Well, stay
And do
tuned.
that.
Stay tuned.
Cool. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I think we'll have relatively soon something that we can show you about that.
Awesome.
But yeah, thanks for your time, Ryan. This was awesome. I'm excited to see what you can build with Fused, and yeah, let's stay in touch on that. Let me know. Just send over whatever you end up making.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'll post it and tag you and everything if I get something public worthy. But I'll definitely keep you in touch for any questions I have or anything.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining as well, and we'll catch you next time.